Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Doctor's Chat, a special series on COVID-19. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and today we're going to talk about why is it so important, the saturation of population with vaccines, that being the key factor, and the dire need to actually completely do away with the vaccine hesitancy, whether we are talking about the adult population or pediatric population. Remember, this is important because the clinical trials for children have already, the young children have already got a go ahead, and the larger picture when it comes to solid, sustainable COVID templates. That's going to be our talking point tonight on this edition of Doctor's Chat. We're very happy to have joining us all the way from Mumbai, Dr. Shashank Joshi. He's a renowned endocrinologist and also, most importantly, the member of the Maharashtra COVID-19 task force. Thank you so much, and namaskar, and thank you so much, Dr. Joshi, to join us and taking out time for us. And I'm going to quickly start with the Mumbai scenario, the Maharashtra scenario. Very quickly, earlier I was reading some of your interviews. Obviously, you've been very vociferously open about the lapses and the mistakes and what should be done and what should not be done. But to begin with, what will you attribute to the kind of rebound that Maharashtra saw in terms of coming back to life, considering Maharashtra was at the receiving end of the worst of COVID, one of the states worst affected states?
So Sakalji, thank you so much for having me over.
Pleasure is
You're
ours.
absolutely right that we were both in the first wave and the second wave. We were very much in the woods. And in the first wave, we struggled. Let me be very honest. But in the second wave, the ferocity of the second wave was very fast, and it was a very fast spreading virus, though it was faster recovering. And the healthcare system was simply overwhelmed. But possibly and probably we were a little better prepared in terms of health preparedness, particularly places like Mumbai, which has a very high population density, across India. If you see, it's a very crowded place. And when you are handling COVID, which is now we know an airborne virus, it was not easy to handle it. And therefore we had to decentralize it. And it was, I think, the decentralization in, 24 Mumbais of each ward, which made all the difference. And that really made, the difference between the way we handled the second wave better than the first wave.
Okay.
So we definitely were on the back foot, but I think our health preparedness was much better. We had the jumbo facilities which served as a buffer. And I think ultimately, in the long run, we were able to give 80% of people were asymptomatic and can be managed at home. But it's for those 20% that we needed enough hospital beds, quarantine beds, hospital or healthcare infrastructure to take care of them. And we had it this time. And which is why we didn't get into any acute shortages, because I think our planning, strategy and execution was a little better. In early April, we did struggle, but clearly we see that the wave is on the wane and we definitely are much better off than what we were before.
Okay. Looking forward, there's so much of buzz about what is going to happen in October, November. We are conveniently using, we as in media and otherwise also, this third wave. We want to just understand from you, sir, can we ensure and actually ensure a complete mitigation of third wave, or if I may put it this way, resurgence of cases that is anticipated in the month of October, November, as per the pattern, the scientific arithmetic or the pattern that this virus follows? Can we just completely do away with it? Can we be prepared?
Sakalji, one thing is COVID virus and human behavior, both are predictably unpredictable. So all mathematical models have failed. But within that, whatever mathematical models have been modeled abroad and within India, they have been reasonable in their some estimates. And the guesstimate or guess estimate is probably that somewhere in September to December, any time a third wave could potentially come.
Correct.
So there are three things to mitigate it. And when you ease out curves, the first yardstick is that the test positivity rate. So if you take 100 people, at least if you test all the 100 people, less than 5 people should test positive for more than 2 weeks. I think that is there across India. The second thing is 70% of the geography should be vaccinated or exposed to the virus. That if we are able to do, as our Honorable Prime Minister has assured, 1 crore vaccines per day, in the next 3 months, we will be able to mitigate the sting out of the third wave completely.
So are you saying as a medical practitioner and expert that the saturation of the maximum population with vaccines is going to be a key factor and that should be the prime focus?
Of course, it will be one of the key factors.
Okay.
And the third factor is that we need zero tolerance for non-adherence to COVID appropriate protocols and COVID appropriate behavior.
How do we ensure that?
So that is the virus is as much in the mind as much as it is in the body.
Let me be devil's advocate here. So even the minute we relax, you're saying it's going to rebound. But then what could be a sustainable solution? Because all and many like you, experts, medical experts, they contend the fact that, this is going to take some time. The virus is around and the virus will stay for some time. But what about the solutions that are sustainable?
So sustainable solutions is self-discipline in the mind and vaccination. These two are clear-cut solutions. So we will have to mask ourselves for some duration, at least for this year, till the end of this year, because whether you have a variant of concern or not, whether you are vaccinated or not vaccinated, we will need some degree of self-discipline, self-control and self-regulation. And I think, this is something where Indians tend to be argumentative and rebellious. And we need to control our habits. We also tend to be lazy at times, but we are a resilient new India. And I think the India 2.0, which we see now, has it within itself. And each one of us have it within ourselves to control just that little bit for these 6 months to get over the crisis. If you ask me, by April 2022, we will be totally out of COVID in a big way. The virus may stay, the variant may stay, but the life will not be impacted the way it has been impacted in the first or second wave. Because
So
by that time, the reasonable part of the population will be vaccinated.
Dr. Joshi, that's a very, that's a point that you've made. By April 2022, you're saying that the virus will stay, but it won't be life-threatening. And that's the target.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a very reasonable estimate I'm making. We can achieve it much earlier also, provided we don't have a variant of concern and provided we are able to vaccinate our population and provided our population cooperates with us in terms of its behavior. And I think it's all the three are feasible. See, the behavior of the virus we can't control, but we can vaccinate to make good antibodies. The behavior of human beings, which is all of us, we can definitely make some impact. And I think that is very doable. See, it's an airborne droplet virus. We have been able to control polio. We have been able to control smallpox. We have been able to control tuberculosis. Why can't we control COVID? And COVID is a very tricky virus. So, whether you like it or not, it's going to travel in the air. So if you don't mask, it's going to enter. So we need to be very careful. For example, many people have people coming at home, and suppose you need to understand what is the true principle of masking. People have maids coming at home. People have servants coming at home. And then they go to multiple houses. When they are at home, what's the harm in masking for 2 or 3 hours and protecting ourselves? When you are going out, what's wrong in masking ourselves? Because we are trying to save ourselves, our own family members, our own near and dear ones. The second wave has impacted all of us, Sakalji. It has impacted every family or every friend or our neighborhood. There is no person living in India or living
not touched by it, totally.
We have all been touched by it. So I think it's a lesson. If we don't learn from the lessons of second wave, I think we'll be foolhardy. And we cannot afford that complacency and foolhardiness. We definitely, I think it's a resilient India. As I told you, it's a new India. And I think we can do it. But I think it's in the mind. And if our mind becomes rebellious and think that COVID is over and we are back to square one, we will be doomed. And I think that's something which we need to recognize.
Dr. Joshi, so you're saying that this is a long drawn COVID war?
Absolutely. There are many battles. We had a first battle, we had a second battle, first wave, second wave. We may have a third battle, but probably we'll be able to mitigate it.
Okay. You've also talked a lot about the rationalization of the use of oxygen, ramping up healthcare infrastructure, how Maharashtra actually went up in terms of testing this time around. So that is a parallel work in progress. I mean, something that you would want that other states can replicate from Maharashtra model. When I say other states, I mean the states that have seen massive spike in the cases of late.
Well, absolutely. I think, we all have to be self-reliant or Atmanirbhar, as our Prime Minister has said. And I think it's important to take some cues from Mumbai or Maharashtra that you need to be self-sufficient on oxygen. we need to ration and rationalize oxygen. See, the point is,
What do you mean rationalizing oxygen?
the point is many people who needed 2 liters of oxygen when they are on the recovery path, we could tap atmospheric oxygen and not use the liquid oxygen which is used. So there are ways and means to do oxygen audit. So we had in Maharashtra very tight oxygen audit so that the most deserving, most needy gets what the person needs. And there's also a confidence in people at large that they will get oxygen when they need.
But is an oxygen audit a very tricky space?
It's not a tricky space. I think, if we do not, a lot of wastage also can occur. Same thing.
How do we ensure the leakages don't happen?
So we have to ensure that we have to have systems in place, and our healthcare infrastructure was caught napping because of the ferocity of the second wave. But I think now it has become reasonably wise and stronger with systems in place, audits in place, and checks in place. And now that the checks and balances in place, I think for third wave, they are much better prepared in terms of that. In terms of also the way we are handling the disease, of assessing every patient. See, our now current objectives are twofold, Sakalji. First is to save every life. We do not want a single death due to COVID. We want to go to a zero COVID death rate. Second is we want to mitigate people with severe disease in the hospital or critical illnesses. These are our two objectives. That's the objective of vaccine also. See, these are early generation vaccines. So even after vaccines, you may sometimes get a very asymptomatic or mild infection. But we don't want that person who has got vaccine breakthrough infection to ever go to a hospital or go to an ICU or have a death. So that is our objective. Our first objective is to save every life. And what happened often in the first wave and also in the second wave is people don't understand COVID timetable is 2 to 3 weeks. And if they are asymptomatic in the first week, they don't monitor their saturation. And it's in the second week when they get that happy hypoxia, suddenly their saturation drops, they get breathless, then they rush to the hospital, and often they die because of lack of access to care. And that is what we can mitigate and prevent. This is in our hands. And therefore we need, and I am grateful to all channels, including Doordarshan, which has persisted to educate people at large that do not take COVID lightly. Even if you have asymptomatic disease, COVID is going to be there. The virus will multiply for 10 days. Virus needs monitoring for 14 to 21 days. You need to be medically connected twice a day, digitally or telephonically with your medical professional or healthcare provider so that we can ensure that every life is safe. And it is for that medical or healthcare provider to recognize the red flag and decide whether the person needs to be in the institution or can be managed at home and save every life. Every life matters, if you ask me. And then the second step is to ensure that we do not get them into severe disease or critical disease.
And for that, you need very robust systems in place, critical care systems in place.
To a great extent, we have built them now. Of course, we are not fully ready because we know that if the third wave happens, for example, in children, in India, we have only 2,000 ICU beds for children. Now, it's not likely. Children actually are very robust. We don't think it will happen in children. But God forbid, this is the only population which is not exposed to the vaccination. Because, by the time the children vaccine trials will be over, 6 months will be over. And we don't have sufficient vaccines to vaccinate the children population. First 10 years of a child's life, child has thymus. So they are able to clear the virus. They have a lot of ACE2 receptors. So they will get the disease, but most of the children will recover completely. But maybe 0.1 to 0.5% of children may get that rare multi-system infection. But in our population of India, which is so large in the pediatric space, they get it. We need infrastructure ready for that. And I am happy that both the state and central governments have made readiness for child or children with COVID also for the third wave. So now we are much wiser than what we were between the first and the second wave.
Pediatric population, children, their vaccination, Dr. Joshi, clinical trials for children have already got a go-ahead. There is a sense of anxiety amongst parents, and naturally so, because we're talking about children being susceptible, probability of it, when, or if at all there is a resurgence. I want to ask you now, what are the kind of observations as a medical practitioner, for the viewers of Doordarshan, just to understand these trials, vaccine trials with children, are the results promising? Because let's face it, there is a certain part of the country, certain states, certain pockets, rural mostly, that there is this vaccine hesitancy, and we can't afford that.
Sakal, you're absolutely right. And I think let us look at children. First things I want to assure all parents that there is nothing to worry. Even God forbid if a child gets COVID, the child's going to be okay. 90% of the child is going to be fine, would be managed by a very, very good child care specialist at home itself. And there are protocols in place, they have been sensitized as a community, or even the general practitioner. In fact, in states like Maharashtra, we have even gone to sensitize the ASHA workers and the first line providers who are the ASHA workers or the various other Anganwadi workers, as you call them. So they can be handled very easily. Second thing, you write a very rightfully question that the children's trials for vaccines are happening. Now, first thing is I would like to tell all parents that normal vaccination for children got disrupted last year because of the first wave and this year because of the second wave. Ensure that that is completed first. Ensure that the child gets the flu shot, child gets all the vaccines recommended by the Universal Immunization Program, and don't let that to be disrupted. Third thing is vaccines save lives, and vaccines clearly are the game changers. So don't fear vaccine, whichever vaccine you get, whether you are in a village or whether you're in a city, what vaccine will do is will make you, protect you from actually severe disease and death. That is the whole idea of vaccination. So don't be hesitant to take the vaccine. Minute you are eligible, go and take it. Vaccine side effects are extraordinarily rare, and vaccine always saves lives and also eventually will help us eliminate COVID in the long run.
Post-COVID syndrome or complications, MISCI, multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children. Multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children, and especially when we look at the age bracket of 2 to 18, and there have been severe cases reported in this space. We're getting a lot of queries in this space from parents across the country. The understanding, the sense that we get is that the cure to this is also very expensive, the drugs that are administered. Especially since we're talking about pediatric population, children, could you just give us more clarity? How do we deal with it? How do we deal with this multi-COVID syndrome or complication, especially with children?
Absolutely. Sakal, very rarely if you get this complication. Okay, this complication also is very treatable. All you need to do is get the child in the intensive care unit, manage the fluid electrolytes, and give a simple drug called IV immunoglobulin. Like these are simple antibody-like immunoglobulins, which are available across India, and their production also has been ramped up now in the preparedness of the third wave, and give it, and 95% of children or 99% of children will recover from it. So even in this rarest of rare possibility of the MISC happening in children, which also occurred this time, there were hardly any deaths in children. See, remember, children are more resilient. Children and women have special protection from COVID. Okay, women because of estrogen, and women biologically is a superior sex, which we all know. And secondly, and from an endocrine standpoint, and secondly, children because they have the thymus gland. So below 10 years, they are specially protected from the immunological standpoint. Children are able to handle and clear viruses also better. So they could be spreaders, but God forbid if they get that rare complication, it's all about simple supportive intensive care in a pediatric care unit under medical supervision, handling their fluid electrolytes, giving them some IV immunoglobulin, and they'll be good. So remember that it's much easier to handle the pediatric critical COVID compared to an adult COVID with cytokine storm or the lung storm or the heart storm which we get. So it's much easier to handle children compared to the adults.
You know, you're saying it's easier to handle children, but then it's also critical to handle children. A certain kind of...
It's absolutely, you are right, because we have to not only handle children, but we have to handle the anxieties of the parents. Yes. And we have to have infrastructure. If yes. a child, God forbid...
You've preempted my next question. This is exactly what my next...
Yeah. There is a critical case. We need infrastructure to be in readiness. For example, in Maharashtra and across India now, including the government of India, everybody is now focusing to ensure that, God forbid, though we know that wave may not happen, and it will only be 3%. It will again be, this time we are suspecting that the vulnerable group in the third wave is likely to be people between 20 and 40, and it is likely to be in a socioeconomic group which is less exposed to the virus. So people who did not get the first wave and the second wave and did not get vaccinated, that less exposed population is likely to get it. Still we need to have ramping up of pediatric intensive care beds, and that's been done across. Maharashtra is not lagging behind at all, nor is various other states, including Government of India, ensuring that no child should have any access issue to a critical bed if they need it, God forbid.
Hmm. Now, the same thing, post-COVID syndrome or complication in adults.
So
Uh, yeah,
post-COVID syndrome in adults has become a big problem.
yes.
Atalji, particularly with this Delta or Delta plus variant, it has left the lung, the heart, and the sugar very badly damaged. And it has also left with a little bit of a mini epidemic of mucor, which we all know. So the first thing is many people who suffered this time with COVID were left with prolonged lung complications where they are out of breath, they need oxygen for a little longer time, they need special medications like pirfenidone or nintedanib or sometimes even inhaled steroids. So that's one thing. And
And Mammoth, weight
lung
loss.
support,
Weight loss.
so lung support. Then second thing is they often need heart support and supervision with cardiac care. You are right, they may have weight loss. They may need very good nutrition, including protein supplements. They need to do yoga to improve their lung function better. They need chest physiotherapists to work on them very regularly. And also remember, it is like an earthquake or like a war. So they go through this mental post-traumatic stress disorder. They feel fatigued all the time. And the other tsunami which we are seeing is a syndemic, COVID with diabetes. You know, after COVID, a lot of people who were pre-diabetic became diabetic, or we got COVID-related
Okay.
diabetes, and then the sugars are very high, and we are seeing that also as a pandemic now, and that's something which are there. And when we have a deadly combination of steroid with diabetes, often people who didn't keep their nose, throat, or mouth clean. Remember, just like I told you, COVID timetable is for 2 to 3 weeks.
Hmm.
The post-COVID timetable is 100 days or 3 months. So for 3 months, people should have good nutrition, adequate nutrition, monitor their lung, monitor their heart, do some pranayama, do focus on nutrition, and ensure that they keep connected with their doctor, whether it's a lung specialist or a heart specialist or a sugar specialist, or sometimes, very rarely, if they get a ENT related issue like mucormycosis, very rarely we have seen this also in this time. But mucor more or less has now disappeared from the country. But we know that this could happen. So it's important that even after COVID, after 2 to 3 weeks of COVID, you need to take care of your health for the next 3 to 4 months. And that's something which we recognize. And then get vaccinated.
Uh, Showing good antibody response. I'm again going back to this, COVID vaccine trials for children. You know, that question, if you just a bit of more not clarification, elaboration on the trials, what is being observed so far?
So
Uh,
we have
what are, how are the results?
so the trials done abroad have shown us data that children's vaccines work well. In India, there are two trials which are ongoing. One is a vaccine which is a homemade vaccine, ICMR Bharat Biotech vaccine, which is Covaxin, where the trial has just started between 2 to 18 years. That trial
Yes.
data is not in public domain, but trials have commenced across India, in different geographies of India. Second is a vaccine which will be available soon from Zydus Cadila, which is from Ahmedabad. They have a DNA vaccine, which is called ZyCoV-D. They have already finished their phase 3 trials in more than 2,000 children between the ages 12 and 18. We have two groups of vaccines which are now being investigated for the pediatric population. And in the world, the Pfizer has got a mRNA and Moderna, which is also an mRNA vaccine, who have done pediatric trials.
Okay.
Whatever data we know from the North America or Europe, we know the pediatric trials have been successful and the vaccine is immunogenic and is safe for children. So the global data is supportive. I am reasonably certain that in the next 2 to 3 months, we'll have data on immunogenicity and safety in the Indian children as well. And once that data is in public domain, our subject expert committee of the drug controller will look at the data and then decide whether emergency authorization can be given for this population.
Hmm. Okay, Dr. Joshi, I would want to ask you one last question. You've said, you earlier mentioned that healthcare system had been complicit about the double mutant strain. We need to be prepared. We are preparing in a lot of spaces since that point on vaccine hesitancy. Vaccine hesitancy is something that we need to fight. How do we go about it? Your final message as a doctor to the viewers of National Channel. We keep getting such reports from nook and corners of the country, misinformation, rumors about not going out and getting these vaccines administered. We can't afford that right now, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think vaccines have to be embraced. The minute you're eligible, take the vaccine. Don't hesitate कि इससे side effect होगा, इससे कुछ गड़बड़ होगा. Vaccine लेना चाहिए सबको. So टीकाकरण, yeah, if you have to get out of COVID, there are only two vaccines. One is get your injection on time when you're eligible and get your second dose on time without fear of any adverse effect. Once your doctor clears you. And second is ensure that for this year and maybe till April of next year, double mask yourself, stay a little distance, and be cheerful and positive that we'll get out of COVID. Don't be frustrated कि अभी जो होगा वो देखा जाएगा. That is a wrong attitude. Be very focused that we will get out of this, but do not. First is take care of yourself, protect yourself, okay, and take some responsibility. Behave responsibly with mask, with distance, with a little bit of cleanliness, and get vaccinated. Vaccination is going to save lives. Vaccination is here to save severe disease. So dhariye mat, we'll be out of COVID, but don't be complacent, don't be rebellious, don't be argumentative, as we are all as Indians. We need this little cooperation for you for the next year, and we'll be out of the woods.
That last bit on the dire need or an urgent need to have our antiviral COVID drug in place.
Okay, we do have very good drugs now. See, we are able to manage COVID better. When we started last year in March, we were groping in the dark and we were shooting bullets not knowing whether they will work or not. We were using repurposed drugs. Now, by the time the third wave will happen, we'll have better drugs to handle COVID.
So you're saying that we know the virus well now?
Much better. We are able to do better pattern recognition. We know what works and what does not work. And we know what are the red flags. We know when to intervene, when not to intervene. We have also learned that it's better sometimes not to intervene, and supportive care does the job with a little bit of oxygen prone position, a little bit of steroid, and the right drug at the right time is so crucial and critical.
All right, and anything else? Your last word?
No, I think stay safe and stay happy. See, remember one thing, one of the reasons people don't follow advice is because from internally they are not happy. So if you get that a little bit of happiness and a little bit of sacrifice for your own health and people around you, it will be very, very crucial to get out of these tough times. See, we are all in tough times. The world is in tough times, and we want to live in a COVID-free world. And if we are in this Vasudhaiva Kutumbam, where we really want to get out of this COVID-free world, we need each one of you to cooperate by masking and vaccinating.
So the ensuring the mitigation of the so-called third wave impact is pretty much in our hands. In our hands. That is doable. That is a doable action.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
On that note, thank you so much and for your assurance and instilling confidence in the viewers of National Broadcaster DD News. Thank you very much, Dr. Shashank Joshi, renowned endocrinologist and Maharashtra COVID-19 Task Force member, for joining us on the show. Thank you. Namaskar.